of experimental thinking. And I don't need to say why, again. It's simply the application of scientific method to everything. And so he talks of naturalizing epistemology. In fact, to this day, you've come across books and philosophical articles about naturalized epistemology. And the idea of naturalized epistemology really begins with Dewey. You see. He wants an epistemology which, rather than prescribing how we should know, instead of a prescriptive epistemology, he wants one which describes the nature of inquiry, if you like, in its natural environment, which is the practical demands of concrete experience. Naturalized epistemology. Which means that epistemology is going to be descriptive of the way in which inquiry operates according to the theory of natural selection. So the evolutionary thing informs what he's doing. Accordingly, he embraces the operationalist view of scientific concepts, very explicitly. In 1925, Percy Bridgman, the Harvard physicist, had published a book called The Logic of Physics, in which he had developed the operationalist view, which I think had been hinted at by others before, but it was Bridgman who developed it systematically and Dewey adopted it. Operationalism is simply the view that the meaning of a theoretical concept in science has to do with what is empirically observable when you perform certain operations. It's an operational meaning, an operational definition. An operational definition. Yeah, we find all the time in talking about how we should go about things. People will come up with theories, with proposals, educational theories, curricular ideas, and the question is, how do you operationalize it? The same is true with political policy. A candidate might come forth with some wonderful idea, and then somebody asks, now how are you going to operationalize this? Now you see at work here is the pragmatic theory of meaning, William James. Because if you want to know what a theoretical concept means, you ask, what are its practical consequences? What happens when you operationalize it? So operationalism is simply an application of the pragmatic theory of meaning to philosophy of science. The example that I like is from mineralogy, where Mohs hardness scale, that is to say, talking about the hardness of minerals, the concept of hardness, Mohs hardness scale supposedly tells you about the hardness of minerals, at least the relative hardness of one mineral in comparison with another. That's all it does tell you. Why? Because in that operation of using Mohs hardness scale, what you do is to rub two minerals against each other. And the one which leaves a mark is by definition harder than the one which is marked. So what is hardness? Relative scratchability. That's an operational definition of hardness. It's not telling you what hardness does. No, take it back. It's not telling you what hardness is. Nothing at all about the essence of hardness. It's about what hardness does when you perform a certain operation. So operationalism then in philosophy of science. And this obviously is akin to the instrumentalist view of science. Instrumentalism is the view that science isn't telling us about the nature of reality. It's simply giving us useful knowledge that we can use for further inquiry or for developing applications of science. Now, you ask science majors why they go into science, why they're going to have scientific careers. You'll find an awful lot of them will say, well, because of what I can do with it. You see, not just earning a living, but doing medicine, doing engineering, doing environmental work, and so forth. The applied science. Now, instrumentalism is saying that this is really what science is about. You see, scientific theories shouldn't be taken to tell us about the nature of reality. Scientific theories are simply useful instruments for what we call applied sciences. Now, you're getting there into the question, what's the relationship between theory and practice? Theory and practice. The way some people talk about a liberal arts education, you'd think that education was a purely instrumental value, not concerned with the real essence of things. What it is to be human? What's the nature of reality? So instrumentalism is regarded as a version of anti-realism in science. You see, scientific realism is the view that science tells us about reality. Scientific anti-realism is the view that science does not tell us about reality. And Dewey is one of the main contributors to scientific anti-realism, in that sense. But notice his reasons for that. Knowledge is a function of a biological organism adjusting to environment. In adjusting to an environment that poses problems, you don't need to know about the essence of reality. You don't need an excessive bundle of theory. All you need is some ideas about how to resolve the problem. And so, rather than talking about traditional formal logic, he speaks of experimental logic, the logic of experimental thinking. He has a book entitled Logic, which has no syllogisms in it. Logic is about experimental thinking, you see. He has a little book, very top level, How We Think, which really says how we think, at this pop way, this problem-solving way. All right, you're driving along the highway. Problem situation. There's a farm wagon pulling out of a side road ahead of you onto the road. What are you going to do? Ideas flash through your mind. Brake, number one. Swerve, number two. Get off the road altogether, number three. Throw up your hands and hope the airbag opens, number four. You know? Now, in normal behavior, no sooner do those ideas come into your mind, then one of them looms large as the thing you're going to do. Why? You draw on funded experience. Yeah, you have a whole funded experience from having driven for a while. You see. From past episodes, you extrapolate to this one. So what you do is to jam on the brake and swerve and get off the highway all at once. Now, maybe some situations where you really have to experiment with the ideas. And he tells of a case where somebody is going for a job interview. The path leads through a wooded area, across a bridge over a creek, and thence into town. Well, the guy gets to the bridge and finds it broken down. It's out, no bridge. What's he going to do? If he goes back and around to the road, he'll be late for his job interview. If he works his way upstream in the hope of finding another bridge, that's a possibility. He experiments in his mind with that, mental experiments. Let's see, how far is that other bridge up there? How long would it take me to get there? And then I've got nowhere to get back. And, okay, mental experiments. Other alternative is to try a long jump across the creek. Yes. Well, he's not sure if that'll work, so what he does is to practice a few long jumps on the side and see how far he can make. And do you think that'll do it? Well, let's try anyway. Yes. And experimental confirmation. What is an idea? You see, you come up with an idea. What is an idea? It's not some representation, some copy, in secondary quality terms of some primary quality object. No. An idea is a hypothesis. It's a plan for action. Tentative. And you draw on past experience, you experiment with it to see if it'll resolve the problem. And a good idea is one that works. How do you make it work? By putting it into action. What is to verify? Verification. Verification is making it true. You make it true. And it's only true when you get your job interview on time, without muddle over you. So, experimental thinking, this is the way he talks about epistemology. He repudiates, certainly for practical purposes. He repudiates spectator empiricism. John Locke, tabula rasa, passively receiving ideas. Nonsense. He repudiates any subject-object dualism, you know, where the mind is out here gaining mental representations of what's out there. No, he repudiates all of that. Because they all divorce thought from action, theory from practice. It is the utility of an idea that matters. Truth is not some objective thing fixed for all time, independent of the observer. Truth is simply the utility, the workability of an idea. Okay, so that's the application to logic epistemology. Clear enough? See why he's going that way? Philosophy of mind, well, little more to be said after the note about functionalist psychology. Plainly, he is rejecting any substance theory of mind or soul. He has no, at least he sees no mind-body problem if mind is not a separate entity. All he's prepared to talk about in relationship to philosophy of mind is various what we call mental functions. Mental is an adjective. That is to say, certain biological functions that involve consciousness is all that the word mental is referring to. Value theory. Here he has a number of important writings. He has a fairly early book called The Theory of Valuation, and then another called Human Nature and Conduct. And here he regards values simply as ideas. Values are ideas. In what sense? Well, values are ideal outcomes. Ideal outcomes that emerge in problem situations. That is to say, you don't value avoiding that farm wagon until the situation arises. Then you need, biologically, you need to avoid it. And out of the biological need is the valuing. Dewey is not interested in value in the sense of what is intrinsically and eternally valuable. He's only interested in value in the sense of what is actively valued. Values are what is valued. And you value what you value in problem situations. You don't realize it otherwise. In other words, values are ideas which give rise to other ideas about resolving a problem situation. There are no intrinsically good ends. No intrinsically good ends. Remember how Aristotle defined the good as intrinsically good. The supreme good, embracing all other goods. Intrinsically good, not good for the sake of something else. Well, what Dewey wants to insist on is a means-end continuum. That is to say, the end, the ideal, involves in itself the means to the end. But when that end is achieved, remember it becomes the thesis for a new antithesis. So that end itself is a means simply to furtherance. There is nothing that is just an end, intrinsically end, fixed end. When you get there, you got there, that's it, period. It's never a period. It's all process. So there are no moral absolutes. There is no supreme good. Values emerge with unsatisfied needs. Values are instruments for survival. Values are not, in some intrinsic sense, moral goods. They're non-moral goods. Survival is a non-moral thing, you see. And yet it becomes loaded with value in certain problem situations. Ethics, then, has to do with how to solve problems and achieve what we desire. How to solve problems and achieve what we desire. This is an instrumentalist ethic. He calls it that, instrumentalism in ethics. And Dewey's work on ethics was one of the major factors that fed into the development 2 or 3 decades ago of situation ethics, which was popularized in a book by that title written by Joseph Fletcher, unrelated to another Fletcher of fame around here. Joseph Fletcher at Harvard, book on situation ethics, maintained that, yes, every moral situation has to be addressed individually. There are no general moral rules, no fixed guidelines, universal moral principles. Each situation has to be resolved in a way that is satisfying to the persons involved. Now, he added a few more ingredients, but that's the pragmatic ingredient of it. And it's very plainly Dewey's thing with a few existential notes involved. So his value theory at that point. Education? Yeah, in education, you'd want to look at his book, Democracy and Education. Democracy and Education. He sees the function of education as learning to live. Learning to live. That is to say, education to provide you with the necessary instrumentalities for problem solving. For problem solving. Learning is not so that you have things to contemplate all your life, reading Plato, Milton, whatever. Learning is not an attempt to instill fixed values, the heritage of values from the past, the ages. No, that's not the value of learning. That's classical education. Education is rather a preparation for successful adjustment to environment, problem-oriented, student-oriented, rather than discipline-oriented or historically oriented or just intellectually oriented. Okay. I think in American education we've, since Dewey, developed sort of a combination of classical traditions and his emphasis on learning that provides life skills. And for reasons, I think, that our view of things has tended to incorporate some of Dewey's concerns without going the whole hog. We still have fixed points of reference. Application to religion. And here the important book of his is called Common Faith. Common Faith. If there are no fixed truths or values, then religion isn't simply an attempt to transmit certain truths and values. What is it? It's not about static ideals. Religion is again a tool for life adjustment. The same theme run all the way through. He is not so much interested in a religion or different religions as in the adjective religious, which refers to a quality, an attitude to life. A religious attitude is one of loyalty to the ideals of the community. Loyalty to the ideals of the community. And why that? Well, 2 reasons. One is the etymology of the word religion, which means to re-tie, or if you like, reunite. And so religion has a function of reuniting individuals within a community by virtue of loyalty to certain intangible ideals of a conventional or traditional sort, not fixed in each other. In other words, religion is important because of its instrumentality, not because it's true, but because of its instrumentality.